The scream of a siren sliced through the dawn, ricocheting off the manicured lawns of Willow Grove Estates. From her car, trapped beyond the iron gates, Nurse Clara Hensley felt her heart lurch. Her palms, slick with sweat, gripped the steering wheel as she stared at the unyielding bars. She'd driven this route to the upscale retirement community dozens of times, but today, something was wrong, terribly wrong. The gate, usually a formality, stood like a sentinel refusing her entry. Beyond it, Clara pictured her patient, Margaret Henshaw, frail and bedridden, waiting for her morning checkup. Every second that ticked by felt like a tightening noose. Clara leaned on her horn, the sound sharp and desperate. The guard, a lanky man with a badge reading Tom, sauntered over, his face a mask of indifference. "No entry without clearance," he said, his voice flat, like he'd rehearsed it. Clara thrust her nurse's ID through the window, her voice trembling with urgency. "I'm here for Margaret Henshaw. She's recovering from heart surgery. I have to get in." Tom barely glanced at the ID, flipping through a battered clipboard. "You're not on the list." "HOA's orders." Clara's blood ran cold. Margaret wasn't just any patient, she was a woman teetering on the edge, her life tethered to Clara's daily VY sits. Without them, a missed dose of medication or a sudden complication could be fatal. Willow Grove was a fortress of wealth, its palm-lined streets and pastel bungalows a postcard of perfection. But beneath the surface, it was ruled by an iron-fisted homeowners association led by Vi VY and Caldwell, a woman whose obsession with control had turned the community into a gilded cage. Clara had heard whispers of Vi VY and's decrees, fines for unapproved mailbox designs, bans on unsightly garden gnomes, but this was different. This was life and death. Inside Bungalow 12, Margaret Henshaw lay in her bed, her breath shallow and ragged. Pain clawed at her chest, a dull ache that had worsened overnight. At 78, she'd once been the heart of Willow Grove, her laughter filling the community center during bingo nights, her homemade lemon bars a staple at every potluck. But a heart attack 6 weeks ago, followed by a grueling bypass surgery, had left her fragile, dependent on Clara's care. She reached for her medical alert pendant, her fingers trembling, but the VYC beeped weakly, its battery dead. Panic surged. Clara was supposed to be here by now. Where is she? Outside, Clara's desperation grew. She dialed the HOA office, but the line rang endlessly. She tried Margaret's neighbors, but voicemails swallowed her calls. Tom, unmoved by her pleas, repeated his mantra, HOA policy. No exceptions. Clara's eyes darted to the fence, its spikes glinting under the rising sun. She considered climbing it, consequences be damned, but cameras dotted every corner, watching like vultures. She was trapped. Then a rusty pickup truck pulled up behind her. A woman in her 30s, with a braid and a worn flannel shirt, stepped out. "They lock you out too?" she asked, her voice edged with frustration. She introduced herself as Lena Carter, a physical therapist who VY cited another resident, Mr. Dawson, daily to help with his Parkinson's. Like Clara, she'd been denied entry, told her paperwork was out of date. Lena's eyes flashed with defiance. "This is insane. People need us, and we're stuck out here like criminals." Together, they hammered the HOA's number again, then tried the sheriff's office. The dispatcher was sympathetic, but powerless. Private communities were a gray area, and without a clear crime, they couldn't intervene. Paramedics, reached next, were equally stumped. "We can't force our way in unless someone inside calls 911, they said. Clara's stomach churned. Margaret didn't have the strength to make that call. As the sun climbed, sweat beaded on Clara's forehead. She imagined Margaret's VY towels slipping, her blood pressure spiking, her heart faltering. Every minute was a gamble. Lena, pacing, kicked a pebble into the gate. "What's next? We ram it." "I'm half tempted." Clara managed a grim smile. "Don't give me ideas." A golf cart whirred up from inside the gate, driven by an older man with a shock of white hair. He introduced himself as Frank Delaney, a retired firefighter who'd lived in Willow Grove for a decade. He'd seen Clara's car from his porch and recognized it from her VY, sits to Margaret. "What's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowing as Clara explained. Frank's face darkened. "This is Vi VYN's doing. She's got the whole place on lockdown since she took over the HOA. He turned to Tom, his voice firm. "Open the gate, son. This woman's a nurse." Tom shrugged, unmoved. "Can't. MS. Caldwell's orders." Frank's jaw tightened. He'd known Margaret for years, shared stories with her over coffee, helped her prune her azaleas when her strength began to fade. The thought of her alone, suffering, lit a fire in him. "Vi VYN's not God," he snapped. "You're putting a woman's life at risk." Tom's eyes flickered, but he held firm, parroting the same line about policy. Inside, Margaret's world was shrinking. Her VY shone blurred, the edges darkening. She tried to call out, but her voice was a whisper, lost in the quiet of her room. Memories flickered her husband's laugh, gone 5 years now, her daughter's first piano recital, the smell of rain on her garden. She clung to them, fighting the fog creeping into her mind. Clara's face floated in her thoughts, a lifeline she couldn't reach. Back at the gate, Clara and Lena were joined by a small crowd of residents, drawn by the commotion. Some muttered about Vi VYN's rules, others defended her, citing security. Clara's patience snapped. "This isn't about security," she shouted. "This is about a woman who could die because you won't let me do my job." Her voice cracked, raw with fear and fury. Lena placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "We'll get in," she said quietly. "One way or another." Frank, unwilling to wait, sped off in his golf cart to confront Vi VYN directly. He found her in the HOA office, a sleek building with tiled roofs and a VYEW of the gate. Vi VYN, poised behind her desk, barely looked up as he stormed in. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight bun, her blazer crisp, exuding control. "Frank, I'm busy," she said, her tone clipped. He didn't mince words. "You're keeping a nurse out. Margaret Henshaw needs her. Open the gate." Vi VYN's eyes narrowed. "We have rules for a reason. Unvetted VY siders are a risk. Last month, a delivery driver dented Mrs. Larson's mailbox and sped off. I'm protecting this community." Frank stared, incredulous. "Protecting it? You're endangering it. Margaret's not some stranger, she's one of us." Vi VYN's expression didn't waver. "Submit a request form. The board will re-VYEW it." Frank's fists clenched. "There's no time for that, and you know it." Outside, the standoff grew tense. Clara spotted an old Sayre VYC gate near the community pool, half hidden by palms. She and Lena sprinted to it, hoping for a miracle, but it was padlocked, the chain rusted but firm. Defeated, they returned to the main gate, where a new sound cut through the distant siren. Frank had called 911, reporting a possible medical emergency. Relief flooded Clara, but it was short-lived. The ambulance pulled up, lights flashing, only to be stopped by Tom, who glanced at Vi VYN, now approaching in her own golf cart. Vi VYN stepped out, her presence commanding silence. "What's the issue?" she asked, as if the crowd, the ambulance, and Clara's frantic pleas were a minor inconvenience. Clara's voice shook with rage. "The issue is you're blocking me from my patient. Margaret could be dying, and you're worried about paperwork." Vi VYN's lips thinned. "Rules apply to everyone. If we let every emergency bypass protocol, we'd have chaos." The paramedics, caught in the middle, radioed their dispatch, unsure how to proceed. One, a young woman with a tight ponytail, leaned out. "Ma'am, if someone's in danger, we need to get in." Vi VYN hesitated, her resolve cracking under the weight of accusing eyes. But pride held her firm. "Did MS Henshaw call you herself?" she asked. Frank exploded. "She can't. That's the point. I called because I'm a resident and I know she's in trouble." The crowd murmured, some shouting for the gate to open, others whispering about Vi VYN's tyranny. Clara's heart pounded. She pictured Margaret's pale face, her trembling hands. Every second was a theft from her life. Then, a figure emerged from the guard booth. Ellen, the HOA treasurer, a quiet woman who'd watched the chaos unfold. Without a word, She unlocked the gate's manual override, swinging it open. The crowd gasped, then cheered. Vivian's face flushed with fury. "Ellen, what are you doing?" Ellen met her gaze, unflinching. "Sa iwain life." The ambulance roared through, Clara and Lena sprinting behind. Frank led them to Bungalow 12, where the paramedics burst in, finding Margaret barely conscious. Her pulse was erratic, her oxygen levels plummeting. They worked quickly, hooking her to monitors, slipping an oxygen mask over her face. Clara, finally at her side, checked Margaret's chart, her hands steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. "She's dehydrated," she said, voice tight, "and her pain meds wore off hours ago." The paramedics nodded, starting in 4. Margaret's eyes flickered open, landing on Clara. "You came," she whispered, her voice a thread. As they stabilized her, the paramedics decided Margaret needed the hospital. They wheeled her out, the stretcher rattling over the pristine driveway. Neighbors watched, some in tears, others clutching each other. Clara wanted to ride along, but the lead medic shook his head. "We've got her. Follow in your car." She nodded, her throat tight, and watched the ambulance pull away, its siren a wail of urgency. Back at the gate, Vivian stood frozen, the crowd's anger now a palpable force. Frank, his voice low but searing, confronted her. "You almost killed her, Vivian. All for your precious rules." Vivian's composure cracked, but she rallied. "This was a misunderstanding. I'll re-VYEW the policy." Clara cut her off, her voice like steel. "A misunderstanding? Margaret could have died. You don't get to shrug this off." Vivian flinched, guilt flickering in her eyes, but she said nothing. The fallout was swift. Word of Margaret's ordeal spread, igniting outrage. Residents gathered at the community center, demanding Vivian's resignation. Ellen, emboldened, revealed the board had been pressured into Vivian's strict policies, her promises of safety drowning out dissent. Clara, exhausted but resolute, cited Margaret daily in the hospital, where she learned pneumonia had set in, worsened by her immobility. "You saved me," Margaret said one day, her voice stronger. Clara shook her head. "We all did, Frank, Ellen, Lena. Even the neighbors." Inspired, Clara joined Frank in drafting a petition for reform. They proposed bylaws requiring resident votes for major rule changes and unrestricted access for medical personnel. Signatures poured in, a tidal wave of support. At a packed HOA meeting, Vivian faced the crowd, her authority crumbling. "I misjudged," she admitted, her voice hollow. "I wanted to protect you, but I failed." She pledged immediate changes, but the damage was done. A vote stripped her of power, leaving Ellen to steer the board toward transparency. Weeks later, Margaret returned home, weaker but alive. Clara helped her settle in, checking her pendant's battery with a smile. Outside, Willow Grove felt differentless, like a prison, more like a community. A new sign hung at the gate. Medical personnel, immediate entry, no approval required. Residents waved to Clara as she came and went, their gratitude unspoken but clear. One evening, as Clara left Margaret's bungalow, Frank stopped by with a plate of cookies. "For the hero," he said, grinning. Clara laughed, the sound light for the first time in weeks. "Just doing my job." But as she drove out, the gate swinging open without hesitation, she felt a quiet triumph. Willow Grove had learned a hard lesson. Rules were only as good as the lives they protected. And Margaret, sipping tea on her porch, watching the sunset, vowed to make every day count, knowing her neighbors would never let her face the darkness alone again. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.